welcome to this episode of the Martial Truth Podcast, The Modern Student. Before we get into that, some housekeeping stuff. We've passed the 17,700 subscribers. It's great. Appreciate everybody that's subscribing. Got 138, 140 members, paid members. Appreciate you all. A lot of videos, especially the shorts, being viewed in Japan. Japan's actually the number one place to view them, so it's kind of interesting. I'll be in New York next week. There's still spots. We do have a decent amount of people coming, but if you contact Jimmy Waller, you'll be able to secure yourself a spot for next week. I'll be in New York 4 days teaching next Thursday through next Sunday. All right, the Walt Young seminar with the Housekeeping Kobuji teachers coming in from Okinawa is on. It's going through. So I'll be there with two of my students. I hope Moria's decide to go. Be a unique opportunity to train in a style that's really not too well known, even on Okinawa. Okay, it's one of the smaller styles. So hopefully I'll get to meet some of you there that decide to go. All right. Please click that like, share, subscribe button. It helps the channel tremendously. Helps bring new eyes to the channel, puts us in more feeds. So please click the like, share, and subscribe button and consider becoming a monthly member. All right, that helps too. All right, so let's talk about the modern student. Okay, so the modern student. So again, in ancient times, you had terms like uchideshi. Uchideshi basically meant like live-in student, where the master accepted you as a student and you actually lived with the master, and he trained you, okay? In Chinese martial arts, we have what's called an indoor student or an indoor disciple, where you're actually, the master takes you in, and now he treats you like a son. And we still have that in modern times. I'm an indoor disciple of Chen style Tai Chi Chuan. So, but with modern times comes a lot of different types of students. And I think some instructors make the mistake of feeling that every student should try to be an uchideshi or an in-the-door student. You know, one of those really serious students that loves martial arts, trains all the time, absorbs everything, really into it. That's their big thing, okay? But, you know, now that I'm teaching 45 years, all right, I've seen a lot of students in modern times. And there's different types of students. So you run through the gamut. So you look at children's students, right? Okay, on occasion, you're going to find that child student that's real serious, loves it, trains hard. All right, you're going to find those. But they're few and far between. You know, most of the kids are being dropped off because the parents, you know, want to fill them with activities, and that's okay. They want them to learn a little bit of self-defense, self-confidence, the whole 9 yards, physical fitness, especially modern kids, so many of them overweight. So we see that all the time. But at the younger ages, there's very few that we would say are serious, you know. My own children were serious, but obviously they're raised in a martial arts household, little bit different, okay? Little bit different. But most of the kids that come in, they want to have fun. They want to train. You know, that the kids become friendly with each other in the class, and that's really it. All right. In the adult class, you have several types of students. So you have the student that comes in, decides he wants to lose a little bit of weight, doesn't really like the weightlifting thing, doesn't like the the gym vibe. He wants to come in and do this. He's always thought about training in martial arts, and he joins. And he comes to class a couple of days a week, and when he's there, he trains hard. But, you know, he's not a guy this is super important to him. You know, he comes in a couple of days a week, he trains. And look, that guy may stick around, and he may make black belt. But it's still, you know, it's not his life. It's not crazy important to him. He doesn't take it crazy serious, okay? Like myself, okay? I'm a martial arts lifer. I take it very serious, you know, but I try to have fun at my seminars. I try to keep it light and joke around, all right? But I'm very serious. I mean, I'm always studying martial arts, whether I'm reading a book, watching somebody's videos on YouTube, working out myself and trying to improve my craft. So it's very important to me. But for a lot of people, it's not. And I think sometimes as a senior guy, you say to yourself, well, man, it should be important to these people. This is important stuff we teach. Yeah, I don't think so. I think the most people in the world don't really care what we do. I think most people look at what we do and go, why do they put on those ridiculous outfits with those belts and swing those ancient weapons and do all this stuff, right? Yeah, because they don't understand, right? They don't understand what's behind all those things. We do, so that's why we like it. We take it more serious. But again, if you're an instructor and you're constantly pushing that guy who really only wants to come 2 days a week and train, and he's really not interested maybe in teaching, he's not, so into it, you might lose him. There's room for that guy in the dojo, and there's room for several of those people in the dojo. They got jobs, they got family. Okay. Yeah, I like martial arts. Sensei, I come down twice a week. I love when I train twice a week. I feel great. I love seeing everybody here. But, I'm not a guy. I'm not really going to ever look to open my own dojo. I'm not really interested in teaching. Great. I mean, we had plenty of black belts in the New York school that were not responsible to teach. Now, if we were stuck and we needed a class covered, of course, those guys would say, hey, Sensei, no problem. I got it. I'll be there. I'll cover the class. But that was not their thing. And that's fine. They came down, they trained, they contributed. Great. Okay. Then you got the guy who's kind of pretty serious. He trains pretty hard. He's really into it. Trains extra. Is really trying to improve his craft. Ask questions. Might ask, hey, Sensei, you have some books I could read? You have some things you recommend? Is there a specific thing I should work on that'll get my martial arts better? He's obviously a more serious student, taking it more serious, trying to improve. Okay. And those guys are great because, again, that guy is probably at some point, I may offer to him, hey, are you interested in learning how to teach? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, Sensei, I definitely want to teach. Okay, so now not only am I teaching him the actual martial arts, but I'm also teaching him now how to teach those arts, which are two very different abilities, skill sets. You could be the greatest martial artist in the world and not be a very good teacher. Believe me, I've seen tons of that over the years, okay? So teaching is a different skill set. And eventually I teach them the Calandra method of teaching, right? Which is a combination of many other people's methods, right? And then eventually they kind of start, doing their own thing a little bit. They approach a subject maybe a little bit different, and you see the growth in those people. And those people I would consider like the modern uchideshi. They're the serious students within the dojo. People kind of know, they can tell, like in the New York school, we don't put tape on our black belt, so everybody's wearing a black belt, and people don't know when they walk in, well, who's the senior black belt? Within a few classes, they know. Because they see the junior black belts going over to other black belts to ask them questions. Hey, could you go over this with me again? Could you do? And then they begin to realize, and then they see who's teaching. Oh, those black belts are the guys that teach. The other black belts, they just train like me. All right, so now they know, right? They know they can ask those black belts questions, and those black belts will 100% help them. But they're clear. They see that there's a more serious black belt within the school. And like I said, in modern times, those guys I consider my uchideshi. And again, things can happen where they go from being an uchideshi to maybe not being so serious, where now they can only come down a couple of nights a week. Family things catch up, work things catch up. I don't knock those guys. I don't think poorly of those guys. I think a lot of senior martial artists, well, no, you should all be like me. You should strive to be like me, a martial arts maniac. Yeah, I don't think so. I understand I'm an outlier. Most people are not going to be that into this, all right? And I think senior teachers make the mistake of trying to push everybody in that direction, of becoming those really, senior serious students that will be eventually like the teacher, maybe. I think you're going to have far more of the other types, that middle type who trains hard, is serious, but They won't necessarily look to do it as a profession. They'll never, be that into it. They may not travel to Japan. It's just, that's not what they want to do. They just enjoy training in the dojo. You will experience also the fact that some people you thought were going to be with you forever will quit. It's the nature of the beast. Years ago, I had a student that was training, and he really wasn't a black belt. He wasn't pulling his weight, and wasn't training very serious. And he had been helping teach the kids' classes in the dojo, but wasn't coming to adult classes. So I had to tell him, hey, listen, you can't help teach the kids' classes anymore because, you're not keeping up with your own training. So you can't teach if you're not keeping up with your own training. And he's a young guy. And, so I told him that, and he decided to leave the school. And we're still friends, all right? And one of my most senior black belts at the time said to me, I think you're making a big mistake. I said, okay. Your objection is duly noted, but the buck stops with me. It's my name on the school, not your name, and that's fine. A couple of years later, that same black belt approached me and said, hey, remember a couple of years ago when so-and-so left the school? I said, yep. She goes, and I told you that you were wrong. I said, yep. Well, obviously you were right. Okay. That same black belt, very senior, eventually left the school too. Had retired from her day job, decided she wanted to go pursue other interests, and that's fine. Wasn't completely honest with her reasons for leaving. I told some people one thing, told me something else. And when she told me she was leaving, but she said to me, but I'll be back. And I looked at her and said, you'll never come back. I said, you're kidding yourself if you think you're coming back. You're leaving. I could just tell you're not coming back. And I said, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I prefer people to be honest. And then I had a person who had started with me when they were 6. And they were my senior student at the time. So they're 6. Now they're in their late 20s, early 30s with their own children. And at the time, black belts weren't paying. So you made black belt in the school, you didn't pay. Okay, well, got to the point where we couldn't afford that. Having a storefront school in New York is expensive. So at that point, I said to all the black belts, hey, you guys are all going to have to pay $25 a month. He was the only black belt that decided that he shouldn't have to do that. Of course, he was also the only black belt that didn't have specific class responsibilities at that point. And he also went on to say, well, the other black belts don't think they should have to pay either. And when I contacted each one of the black belts, they were like, well, why is he speaking for me? I never even had the discussion with him. If I had a problem with paying the $25, I would tell you. Eventually, I stopped it all and said everybody has to pay. Everybody pays the full amount. You want the dojo to stay open? You all like having your own key. You can go and train whatever you want. Okay, everybody's got to pay because we've got to stop where we're on the razor's edge, which paying rent and paying the bills. And nobody had a problem with it. Everybody stayed. That one black belt was my senior guy at the time, who I knew since he was 6. He left. And, he attempted to reach out to some of my teachers, and those teachers weren't too interested in hearing from him. And, he was told when he left, hey, don't bite off your nose to spite your face, okay? Maybe take a little break here. Think about this before you do it. But he didn't, and that's fine. And the other thing is a lot of these, when a senior black belt leaves, a lot of them think, well, now Sensei will see. Now he'll see how important I was to the dojo. But it was funny, when they left, the dojo didn't miss a beat. And in the case of the most senior black belt, who I knew since he was 6, there were people in the dojo that didn't ask about him for 6 or 8 months after he left. One night, one of the other black belts, junior black belt, says, hey, where's so-and-so been? And a bunch of the senior black belts left because they knew he left. I said, oh, he left months ago. And they're like, yeah. And then it was interesting hearing some other black belts come to me and say, hey, he was a great martial artist, but not a very nice guy. He didn't treat us very well in the dojo. So then it made me think. I probably had a bit of a blind spot because I knew him from such a young age, but he was behaving in a way where maybe wasn't so good. And some other people had pointed out some other behaviors when, again, so it was a learning experience for me to make sure to not have those blind spots anymore, to make sure, look and see what everyone's doing, make sure they're all doing the right thing. So again, a learning experience for me. The other thing I learned was with students, they're going to quit, and you can't worry about that. And James Waller, who took over my dojo in New York, when he first takes over, he goes, 2 people didn't re-sign up and this and that. And I was like, listen, man, if you're going to start worrying about people dropping out, you're going to lose your mind. You're going to lose 2, you're going to pick up 3. You're going to lose 2, you're going to pick up 1. Don't get hung up on it. Just keep doing what you're doing. And now he realized you're right. And then, we've had, when some of these people left throughout the years, we realized after a short amount of time that was actually addition by subtraction. And that's one of my favorite sayings now when it comes to running a martial arts school. Someone leaves and you're like, oh man, this guy's one of the senior guys. He's leaving, blah, 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 blah. And then 3 months later, you realize the dojo hasn't skipped a beat. And I would also often ask people, what's the most important aspect of a dojo? And, I'd get answers. Well, you, Sensei, because everybody thinks that's what I want to hear. Oh, you, Sensei, you're the most important aspect. And I would go, yeah, but what if we didn't have a physical place? And you go, well, yeah, the place is important. And I say, well, what if we didn't have any students? Oh, yeah, we need students to have a dojo, right? So I quickly showed them that really there's equally important things. Yeah, you need a sensei. You need someone to steer the ship. But you need a physical space to train, and you need students to teach. If you don't have those things, you don't have a dojo, okay? And, when I decided to move out to Arizona and leave the school that I started, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary not too long ago. So I've had the school for over 40 years. Started in Manhattan, moved to Queens, then from Queens went to Long Island. All right. So it's been going for 40 years in one form or another. When I decided to move out to Arizona, I told the black belts, hey, within 2 years, I'm out of here. If any of you are interested in taking over, let me know, but you got to decide soon because we got to, start doing the transition. And, the one guy stepped forward, James Waller, and decided, hey, I want to try this. I want to see if I can run a dojo. I want to give it a shot. And I was like, great. And he had other senior black belts that were there. And, they're helping him out, and they still are helping him out. And the dojo hasn't skipped a beat. Okay, but my ego would have said, boy, when I leave, this place is in trouble. It's going to crash and burn because I'm Mike Calandra. And that's why all these people come here. But I got to be honest, I never really thought that. I thought if they did what they should do, the black belts, which is train hard, try to figure stuff out, and try to teach really good martial arts, I thought the place wouldn't miss a beat. And literally one of my black belts called me about a month after I moved to Arizona and said, hey, Sensei, I just want to call you and tell you, and I don't want you to think we don't appreciate you, but I almost think it's a good idea you left. Now, I knew what he was going to say, but I wanted to hear it out of his mouth. And I said, why? He goes, well, the other night we're in class and something came up and none of us knew the answer. And got one of us without thinking goes, let's ask. And then we realized, oh, right, he's not here anymore. He's in Arizona. So now we looked at each other and we said, okay, we got to figure this out. Now, I'm a phone call away. I'm a video call away. So if there's something really questionable, I get on a video call and I show them what it is. But that having to figure things out on their own was a huge part of their growing. Okay? So when I go back now, and I'll be there next week, I'm always amazed at how much better everyone's gotten. Again, egotistically, you say, oh, when I leave, it's going to become a problem. They're not going to develop. They're not going to, no. They haven't skipped a beat. They're training hard. They're figuring things out on their own. They're doing good. Outstanding students. That's what you want. One of the things Chen Zhanghua, my Tai Chi master, always says when he comes to New York is every year when I come, and he's been coming there for 25 years, he says, your guys are ready to learn. He says, I never come and go, oh, those guys got worse since last year. Never. He goes, they're always improving. And that's the way a dojo should be. So it's important. So modern students come in a lot of shapes and sizes, all right? I think senior teachers like myself shouldn't expect every student to be that uchideshi, that real serious guy that, like in my case, trains in multiple arts that I teach and, wants to teach and, wants to run a dojo or just come and teach a lot and travel with me. You're not going to get a ton of those people. The far majority is going to be those guys that are into it, but they have families, they have responsibilities. And listen, you need those guys. The dojo needs those guys to keep it going. If it doesn't have those guys, you're going to have to close your door, And it's the same with the kids. I mean, don't take teaching the kids so serious. I mean, my kids' classes are all about fun. Then when they turn 12 and they come in the adult class and they start learning real martial arts, it's almost like, wow, this is very different from the kids. But now they're ready for that. They've been the goofy kid student. Now they come into the adult class. Now they see how serious the training is, right? And, a lot of them stick around. We just had 4 tests for black belt in New York. We got another one testing very soon. And it's a great thing. So the modern student comes in a lot of different ways. And we shouldn't knock any of those ways. They're all good. And we shouldn't try to make them all cookie cutter, right? They're all different. We should treat them all different, whether they're old, young, male, female, kid, adult, they're all different. As a teacher, we have to adjust to each student and try to train them in the way where it makes them want to continue the training and continue practicing. So, the modern student, he's important. We need him. And we need him in all the different ways he comes, all right? Not just, the guy who's in top physical condition and is real serious, to the guy that's a little out of shape and just trying to get his health better and everything else. We need them all, and we should want to train them all. Remember, the sensei's job is to train everybody, not just the super athletes. Can you take the guy who's not that coordinated, a little out of shape? Can you bring him forward? Can you elevate him? That's what we want to see. When you can do that, that's when you're a real sensei. The guy that learns easy and fast, anybody can teach him. The guy that struggles, can you help him with his struggle? And in the end, get him to black belt. Then I'll be impressed. All right. So hope you enjoyed this one. Hope to see a bunch of you next week in New York. All right. Looking forward to it. Should be 4 excellent days of training. Please, again, if you like the podcast, click that like, share, subscribe button. Consider becoming a monthly member. Next week, I should be dropping an interview next week while I'm gone. There won't be as many videos this week because I'll be in New York. I'll be busy doing stuff. So just keep that in mind. So hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Take care.